In today's video, I'm going to take you start to finish behind the scenes on how to create a pour shot, just like the one you see on your screen, from the lighting, the equipment, the camera settings, all the way to turning it into a GIF for your client. I'm also going to show you how to turn it into a GIF both in Photoshop as well as for free in Canva. So let's jump straight into the video. Okay, the first thing I want to show you is the behind the scenes of the lighting. Now for this shot, I've opted to use my strobe light, and I've paired that with my 4x4 Scrim Gym modifier that has a quarter stop diffusion material over it. Now, in case you're wondering why I'm using strobe over natural light, and the main reason for this is that when I'm using strobes or even a speed light or any form of flash, my shutter speed is now independent and doesn't really affect the exposure or the brightness of my image. So instead, I'm actually relying on the power of my light instead of reducing the shutter speed to get more light into my image. And because of this, I'm able to get nice and sharp photos that aren't affected by movement. That's one of the reasons why when I'm doing any movement shots like pouring or whisking, my preference is to actually use artificial light over natural light. Now you can totally do this whole tutorial with natural light as well. Then the second reason why I like to use flash, especially when doing GIFs or GIFs, is that I want my light to be consistent over multiple images that I take. And flash will allow me to do this more consistently than natural light ever will. So that's the reason why I'm opting to use flash over natural light, but in case you don't have artificial lights, you can still follow all the instructions in this video with natural light as well. Okay, let's go to the light now. So what strobe light am I using in particular? Now, I have plenty of options when it comes to flash, but the reason why I opted for a Godox 80-400 Pro light this time is that I want a light that has a fast recycle time, especially when I'm taking multiple images. Now, in case you're wondering what is recycle time and why does it even matter here, the recycle time refers to the time it takes for your light to recharge back to full power and then fire again for the next shot. And this is usually something that's measured in seconds or even milliseconds. Okay, so the more the light or the higher the output of light that's emitted, the longer the recycle time usually is. And then the lower the power of the light, the less time it takes for your flash to go back up to full power and take another shot. Now, for this particular Godox light that I'm using, the recycle time is really fast, between 0.01 seconds at its lowest light output and 0.95 seconds at its highest light output. So I know it's actually going to come back to its full power pretty quickly, which allows me to take those multiple images very quickly, which is important when making a GIF. And then the reason why I've used this particular modifier is because I wanted a nice sunny look with those hard shadows, but I didn't want the depth of my shadows to be dark like they would be if I was using a bare bulb. Now, before I jump into camera settings, if artificial lighting is something that you're looking to master in the next 30 days so that you can stand out from other food photographers with your lighting skills and your creativity and start booking those high budget commercial clients, then sign up for my free masterclass in the description box below. Students who've taken this class have gone on to create images that look like this and this in less than 30 days using artificial lighting. And as a result of mastering artificial light, they've been able to raise their rates and work with dream clients such as Tilda Basmati Rice, Toshiba, as well as Starbucks. Okay, back to the pour shot. So now that we have our light and modifier out of the way, let's talk a little bit about camera settings. Now, I've actually set up my aperture, ISO, and speed according to the light that I'm using and the brand of camera I have. But let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the other camera settings that are useful when shooting action shots like this. You want to put your camera mode to high-speed continuous mode, which basically means you're able to take multiple images at a really fast rate. Then the next setting that you want to be aware of is your focus. Because I'm going to be shooting really quickly, I want to lock my focus in manually so it doesn't change with every single shot I take. So what I like to do is put my focus in the middle of the glass where I know my pour action is going to be happening. Now, since at the moment there's actually no pouring happening, the easiest way to set my focus is to hold something like a spoon or a knife or any other subject in the middle of the glass, manually focus on this area, and then lock the focus in so it doesn't change. In this way, when I actually do my pour, I just need to ensure that I'm somewhat in the middle of the glass, and that will ensure that my images are nice and sharp. Now, if you find that a little bit difficult to do, you can also focus on the front rim of the glass, and that will still give you a nice sharp pour. Okay, let's talk about a few additional bits of equipment that you may want to bear in mind in order to have the most successful action or pour shot. So the first thing you want to have when doing a pour shot like this that's going to be turned into a GIF or GIF image is to shoot on a tripod. Now this one's pretty basic. I'm not really going to go into this too deeply. The main reason you want to do this is that the only movement that you want in your photo is the movement from the pour. You want everything else to remain still, and the easiest way to do this is if you're on a tripod. It might be a little bit difficult for you to also be pressing the trigger button at the same time. I mean, it can be done, but it just makes life a little bit harder. But also, the second problem with pressing the trigger button is that you may actually move your camera just slightly, or even the tripod. So in order to alleviate that, I suggest having an off-camera trigger. Now, I shoot tethered into Capture One, which means I can actually trigger my camera using the keyboard, which is exactly what I did for this shot. But you can also use something like a remote trigger to take your shots as well. All right, so we have our lighting set up, we have our camera all ready to go. It's now time to take our final shot and see what our results will look like. Now, it might take you 1 or 2 times to kind of repeat the whole process in order to get that perfect pour shot, or you might get lucky like me and get the perfect pour shot right off the bat. But always have extra drink or food and props in mind so that you can actually repeat the shot at least a couple of times. Now, once I've completed the shoot, I like to just flag all my final images, and then I like to start editing with my final shot and then work backwards to apply the edit to the remaining photos. Now, this is a pro tip here because a lot of people will edit the first shot and then apply that and sync it to the rest of the images. But the reason why I like to do it the other way around and to edit the final shot first is because the first shot generally won't have any liquid inside the glass. It's empty, right? Whereas the last shot is full of liquid. And so I like to edit that last shot to see exactly what the final drink will look like and then apply the exact same edit by pasting the edit onto the rest of the images. By doing this, not only do I have consistency across all of my images, but it also saves me a heck of a lot of time when it comes to editing. Okay, once your edit is complete, you need to save all your images as JPEGs, and now I'm gonna head into Photoshop in order to create my GIF. Inside Photoshop, you wanna go to File, Scripts, and then Load File into Stacks. Press Browse, and then find the JPEGs that you've just saved. Press OK, and then you can see that these will load up as layers in Photoshop. Now, you want to ensure that these are in order, and you can see that the file numbers are next to them. And in case they're not in order, you can actually manually move your JPEG files around. You also want to ensure that your timeline tab is open at the bottom. And in case you can't find your timeline tab, just head to Window and then make sure that timeline is ticked. You then want to click this arrow, which will open up a drop-down menu, and you want to select Create Frame Animation. When you press Create Frame Animation, you'll see that only one of your JPEGs will load into the timeline. So what you then want to do is click this hamburger menu in your timeline and select Make Frame from Layers. And now all the JPEGs have loaded into your timeline. Now, if I click on the first JPEG, you can clearly see that this is actually the last frame that was taken. And this is something that oftentimes happens when you're creating a GIF in Photoshop. The last frame will come up first, and then the first frame will come up last. So just click the hamburger menu again, select Reverse Frames, and the images are now from start to finish. Now, if I click the play menu, you can see that they are in the correct order, but let's have a look at a few other settings that you want to be aware of. At the moment, the GIF will run forever, so it keeps looping again and again and again. And I like to keep it on the settings, but you can change it to loop once. Now, another setting is how fast your GIF runs from start to finish. So currently, it's actually running a little bit fast for me. So what you can do is select the first frame, hold the Shift button down, and then select the last frame, and you'll notice that all the frames have been selected. Press the drop-down menu next to 0 seconds, and you can now change how fast the GIF runs from start to finish. So just play around with the different times to see what the GIF looks like and what you like the look of, and see how many seconds looks good to you. Having experimented with different times, I think 0.1 seconds works the best for me when it comes to this particular image. Okay, it's now time to actually export our GIF. You can either save this as a GIF, or you can actually save this as a video MP4 file that you can upload directly onto Instagram as a reel. So let me show you the first way, which is a GIF. Click on File in Photoshop, head down to Export, and then Save for Web. Make sure you're selecting the original and that GIF has been selected as well. Hit Save, and just select wherever you want to save your GIF. So I'm actually just going to save mine to desktop, and that's all there is to it. Now, if you want to save this as an MP4 file to use as a reel on Instagram, then head to File, Export, and then Render Video. For me, this second method actually works much easier, as I usually want to upload this to Instagram. And then once it saves as an MP4 file, when you play it, this is what it looks like. Now, another quick method that you can use to make a GIF is to basically use Canva. So head into Canva, click on Create a Design, and then click on the size of template that you want to use. So since we're going to be uploading this as a reel to Instagram, I'm going to use Instagram Story. You then want to drag all the photos that you had previously saved as JPEGs into Canva. Now, before you do anything else, you need to count how many JPEG images you have, and then depending on the number of images you have, you want to create the same number of pages in Canva. Then you want to drag the JPEG images one by one into the Canva design in order until all the images are uploaded separately on each page. Now, once you've done that, you now need to tell the program how quickly you want the final video to scroll through the images. Now, in order to do that, you need to press Animate, press Simple, and then scroll down to remove all animations. By doing this, this just allows the timing editor to come up, which won't be there before. You can then go ahead and edit the timer to whatever you prefer. And again, I like to experiment between 0.1 and 0.2 seconds, but feel free to try out different times. You then want to ensure you apply this to all pages as well. And then the last thing you want to do is to come to Share, Download, and change the file type to MP4. Make sure all the pages are selected and then just hit download. And this is what the final MP4 file looks like. So it's now ready to either be sent to a client or upload it onto Instagram as either a story or a reel. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is check out this video over here where I go through a super budget-friendly artificial lighting setup for food photography that would be perfect for a pour shot like this one that we just did. I'll see you there.